Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today.
Hmm.
We are going to be talking about auras.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah. So, for our listeners who may not be familiar with auras, we're talking about those energy fields, the ones that some people say surround every living thing.
Yeah, those invisible vibes. The kind that supposedly tell you if someone's like good or bad, or
Yeah.
healthy or
Right. Exactly. And the material you sent me, it's like a whole rabbit hole of information. I mean, it goes into the history, the
Mhm.
potential science, how they're used in healing and stuff. Oh, and get this, it even has this exercise so you can try to see an aura. I mean, come on, how cool is that?
Yeah, I know. It really is fascinating. The history of auras is it goes way back, It's not just some new age thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, like, before we get too deep into all that, can you just give us like a quick Aura 101? What exactly are we talking about here?
Okay, so basically, an aura is this energetic signature, right? It surrounds every living being. And it's supposed to be, well, it's been described as a luminous field, sort of like, I guess you could say, a halo, and it reflects a person's inner state.
Okay, so, like, if I'm stressed, my aura is going to be all frazzled looking.
Well, some people believe that, yes, and that different emotions create different colors in the aura, like uh, anger might be red or calmness might be blue.
Wow, that is wild. So, how exactly does this work? I mean, is it like some kind of electromagnetic field or?
Some people believe that it might be connected to those fields that all living things give off, but honestly, the science on it is still pretty debated.
Interesting. And, in your notes, you mentioned that auras have layers. Like, what is it, an energy onion or something?
Kind of, yeah. There are supposedly like 7 layers to the aura, each representing a different aspect of a person. So you've got the physical layer, the emotional layer, the mental layer, and it just keeps going outward from there.
So, wait, are you saying that everyone's walking around with these 7 layers of like invisible energy stuff around them?
That's what some people believe, yes.
Yeah.
And that by understanding these layers, you can learn a lot about a person.
That's pretty mind-blowing. Okay, so let's say I'm sold on this whole aura thing. Can I like learn to see them, or is it like a superpower that only some people have?
Well, some people do seem to be more naturally sensitive to these energies, but many believe it's a skill that you can develop with practice. Like meditation and visualization are often recommended.
So like if I meditate enough, I might start seeing colorful halos around everyone.
It's possible. And, even if you don't see full-blown auras, you might start to notice subtle energy shifts around people, or maybe you'll just get better at reading people's vibes.
Okay, that's pretty cool. But let's be real. I mean, how do we know any of this is actually legit? I'm trying to keep an open mind, but there's always that skeptic in me saying, come on, really?
Oh, for sure. And it's good to be skeptical. I mean, that's part of critical thinking, right? But there are actually people who claim they can see these auras, and they describe them as glowing colors around a person. And each color, it supposedly means something different about that person's traits, or their emotions, or even their health.
So it's like a big, colorful personality test, but instead of answering questions, it's just your energy like radiating outwards.
Exactly. And while some scientists think it's just people's brains playing tricks on them, there's still a lot of mystery surrounding the whole phenomenon. Like, how can some people see them while others can't? And what's the real deal with these colors and their meanings?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about too. I mean, is there like a cheat sheet to aura colors? Red means this, blue means that. I'm dying to know.
Yeah, there are some common interpretations. Like, for example, red is often associated with passion and energy, while blue is often seen as a sign of peace and tranquility.
So, like, if my aura is red, does that mean that I'm always angry?
No, not necessarily. It's more nuanced than that. And the interpretations can vary depending on the person and the context. Like red could also indicate someone who's really driven and ambitious.
Ah, okay, so it's not just a simple color-coded system.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interpretation involved.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating, right? It's like this whole language of energy that we're just beginning to understand.
It's like, if these auras are real, how much control do we even have over them? Like,
Yeah.
can we change our aura color just by thinking happy thoughts?
That's a really interesting question, and it's something that we're going to be diving into a lot deeper in the next part of our deep dive. Because, yeah, there's a whole debate about how much our thoughts, emotions, and intentions can actually influence our energy field.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear more about that. This is getting really interesting.
I know, right? It's like we're peeling back the layers of reality one energy field at a time.
All right, well, on that note, I think it's time for a little break. We'll be back soon for part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll explore how these auras are thought to be connected to healing practices and what science really has to say about it all. Stay tuned.
See you soon. So, are you ready to dive back into the world of auras?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
I'm still buzzing from all that talk about energy fields and color interpretations.
It's definitely a lot to wrap your head around, but it's more than just theory. There are actually people who use auras in like real life practices.
Yeah, like Reiki, right? That's the one where people like wave their hands over you and it's supposed to heal you or something.
Well, it's not quite that simple, but yeah, Reiki is a hands-on healing technique that works directly with the energy field.
Okay, but be honest, does that stuff really work? I mean, I've heard people swear by it, but I'm always a little skeptical.
I get it. It can definitely sound a bit out there. But the idea is that Reiki practitioners channel universal energy through their hands, and they use that energy to promote healing and balance in a person's aura.
So they're like energy conduits,
Yeah.
like channeling the force or something.
Exactly. It's like they're tapping into this universal source of energy and directing it to where it's needed.
Okay, but how does that actually, like, heal anything? Is there any science behind it?
Well, the science is still pretty limited, but some studies have shown that Reiki can have positive effects on things like stress reduction, pain management, and even boosting the immune system.
Interesting. So maybe there's something to this whole energy thing after all.
Yeah, and even if we can't fully explain it scientifically, there's something to be said for the power of intention and the mind-body connection, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, the placebo effect is a real thing, so maybe just believing that something will help you can actually make a difference.
Right. And with Reiki, there's this added layer of energy work that might be amplifying those positive effects.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. So what about those other aura practices you mentioned? Like aura cleansing and chakra alignment. What are those all about?
So, aura cleansing is basically like giving your energy field a good detox. It's about removing any negative or stagnant energy that might be clinging to your aura.
And how do you do that? Like, do you need to take an energy shower or something?
Uh-huh. Not exactly. There are different techniques you can use, like smudging with herbs like sage or palo santo, or using sound healing with singing bowls or tuning forks.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of smudging. So it's like the smoke clears away the bad vibes.
That's the idea. And then there's chakra alignment, which focuses on balancing the energy centers within the body.
Wait, remind me, what are chakras again?
There are these energy centers that run along the spine, and each chakra is associated with a different color and governs various aspects of our being.
Okay, right. So if your chakras are out of whack, does that mean your aura is messed up too?
That's what many people
Yeah.
believe, yeah. And by using techniques like meditation, visualization, or crystals, you can help bring the chakras back into balance, which is thought to have a positive ripple effect on the entire aura.
I'm seeing a pattern here. All these practices seem to be about, like, fine-tuning our energy and making sure everything is flowing smoothly.
Exactly. It's like we're energetic gardeners tending to our own little energetic ecosystem.
I love that analogy. Okay, so we've talked about ancient wisdom and energy healing, but what about the science? Is there any actual research being done on auras?
There is. It's still a relatively new field of study, but biofield science is starting to explore the electromagnetic fields generated by living organisms and how they might relate to our health and well-being.
So maybe science is finally catching up with what ancient traditions have known all along.
It's possible. And it's exciting to see that there's a growing interest in bridging the gap between science and spirituality.
I'm all for that. Okay, before we move on, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, the idea that we might be picking up on each other's auras, even if we're not consciously seeing them.
Oh, yeah. You know those times when you just get a gut feeling about someone or you feel inexplicably drawn to them or maybe even repelled by them?
Exactly. Like, what's that all about?
Well, some people believe that our energy fields are constantly interacting and we're subconsciously picking up on those subtle cues even if we're not fully aware of it.
So it's like we have this built-in energy radar that's scanning the people around us.
That's a great way to put it. And it makes you think about the energy you're putting out into the world, right?
For sure. Like, if I'm grumpy and stressed, am I just radiating bad vibes everywhere I go?
Well, it's probably not helping. But the good news is that we have the power to shift our energy and create a more positive impact on ourselves and the people around us.
Okay, that's reassuring. But how do we actually do that? Like, what are some practical tips for cultivating a more positive aura?
Well, one of the simplest yet most powerful things you can do is practice gratitude. Taking the time to appreciate the good things in your life, no matter how small, can really shift your energy.
So it's about focusing on the positive and letting go of the negative.
Exactly. And that positive energy will naturally radiate outward, influencing not just your aura, but also the energy you bring to your interactions with others.
I love that. And what about those sound healing techniques you mentioned? Could those help too?
Absolutely. Sound healing can be a great way to harmonize your energy field. Whether it's listening to calming music, chanting mantras, or using singing bowls, those vibrations can have a profound effect on your aura.
It's like giving your energy field a sonic bath.
I like that. And another simple yet effective practice is spending time in nature. The grounding energy of the earth, the fresh air, the sunlight, it's like a natural aura cleanser.
So my weekend hikes are doing more than just burning calories.
You got it. And even just a few minutes of mindful breathing or visualization can make a difference. It's all about being intentional with your energy.
These are great tips. I'm definitely going to try some of these out. Now, before we wrap up part two, I have to ask, are there any downsides to this whole aura thing? Because, I could see how people might get a little too obsessed with it or use it to judge others or even try to manipulate people's energy.
Yeah, that's a really important point. Like any tool, knowledge about auras can be misused or misinterpreted. It's crucial to approach it with respect, discernment, and a healthy dose of skepticism.
So it's not about diagnosing people based on their aura color or trying to force your energy on others.
Exactly. It's about using this knowledge for personal growth and understanding and always respecting people's boundaries.
Okay, that's a good reminder. So we've covered a lot of ground in part two, from energy healing to the science of biofields to practical tips for cultivating a positive aura. And I think it's a perfect segue into part three, where we'll delve into some of the more philosophical implications of auras and explore what all of this might mean for our understanding of consciousness and the nature of reality. Okay, so are we ready to go full-on philosophical?
Bring on the big questions. I think we've earned it after all that energy talk.
Right. Okay, so if we're really going with this whole aura thing, this idea that we're all radiating energy, what does that mean for, consciousness?
Yeah, like how much of what we think of as me is actually just, energy vibrating at a certain frequency.
Whoa, deep. So are you saying my personality, my thoughts, my
Everything. It's
yeah.
like, what if our individual consciousness is just a tiny part of this bigger, ocean of consciousness?
You're talking about a collective consciousness, right?
Mhm.
I read a little about that, and it's pretty trippy stuff.
It is. And if you think about it, it makes sense in a way. Like we're all connected, right? Not just physically, but maybe energetically too. And maybe our auras are the visible expression of that connection.
So our individual auras are kind of like drops in the ocean of collective consciousness.
Something like that. Yeah. And that raises some really interesting questions like, what if our thoughts and emotions are actually affecting this larger field of consciousness?
So if I'm having a really bad day, am I bringing everyone down with me? Or if I'm super happy, can I spread good vibes to the whole world?
It's a possibility, and it makes you think about the responsibility we have, right? If our energy is literally impacting the world around us, maybe we should be more mindful of what we're putting out there.
That's kind of scary, but also kind of cool, right? We have that much power.
Exactly. And it ties back to that whole intention thing we were talking about earlier. If our intentions can actually influence our auras, and our auras are part of this larger field of consciousness, then maybe our intentions are shaping reality in ways we don't even realize.
Okay, so what, if I focus really hard on winning the lottery, my aura will turn green, and then, boom, I'm a millionaire.
Well, it might not be quite that simple. But there is this idea that by aligning our thoughts, emotions, and intentions, we can start to manifest things in our lives.
So, if I'm constantly thinking negative thoughts, I'm more likely to attract negative experiences.
It's a possibility, yeah. And on the flip side, if you're focused on positivity, gratitude, and, all that good stuff, you might find that more positive things start happening in your life.
It's like we're literally creating our own reality with our thoughts and energy.
Exactly. And that brings us back to those philosophical questions about, what is reality anyway? And how much control do we actually have over it?
Whoa, we're going deep.
Yeah.
So, our auras are a clue to this bigger mystery of existence.
Maybe. They might be a bridge between our inner world and the outer world, a way for us to understand how our consciousness interacts with, the fabric of reality.
Okay, this is blowing my mind. So after all this talk about auras, what do you think? Do you believe they're real?
I have to admit, I came into this whole deep dive with a pretty healthy dose of skepticism. But after all the research and, just thinking about all the possibilities, I'm definitely more open to the idea now.
Me too. And even if we don't have all the answers, I think it's important to stay curious and keep exploring these kinds of mysteries.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe someday science will catch up and we'll have a better understanding of how it all works. But for now, I think it's okay to just embrace the wonder and the mystery of it all.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the world of auras. We've covered a lot of ground, from the ancient history to the potential science to practical tips for working with your own energy. And if you're curious to learn more, we encourage you to check out the sources we mentioned and, maybe even try some of those exercises we talked about. Because ultimately, the best way to understand auras is to, experience them for yourself. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep shining your light.